Hey guys, my name's Sam and welcome to Prep Medic. In this week's video, we are going through the medical equipment that I carry with me as a paramedic on the all hazards response team. All right, before we get into the pack, I need to give you guys just a little bit of background on the all hazards response team. Essentially, we are a specialized team within my agency that sole job is to bring medicine to austere environments. Now, in Colorado, most of that involves going to Firelines, offering Fireline medical support, but we also do things like hiking into ultramarathons and providing support for those guys going 24 hours. We do FEMA disaster response as well as some other ancillary things. So a lot of what's in this pack is geared around wilderness medicine, not so much that urban environment. One thing I do need to apologize for is I am a little bit sick, have some kind of head cold going on. So if I sound a little bit funny or start coughing in the middle of this, that's why. But getting into the video, this pack is the RATS pack by Mystery Ranch. And I know RATS has this horrible negative connotation whenever you say that acronym. But in this case, this is just a medical pack that they've come out with. It is absolutely spectacular. And the reason I chose this pack is because it is substantial, it can hold a lot of equipment, and it's meant to be worn for a long period of time. So you look at these shoulder pads, and these are very well padded, unlike a lot of the other ones which have kind of a flimsy strap system that are meant to just be worn over armor or in a tactical situation. This is very much meant to be rucked with. So the pack itself is super sturdy. If you guys are curious about the actual specifications of this, you can go to the video I did 3 weeks ago, I believe, on the RATS pack and a review of that. I want to mainly go over the contents here. So on the outside of the pack, I've got a couple things. On this right side, this is a traction splint. And for those of you that don't know, a traction splint is a device that goes over when somebody has a midshaft femur fracture, which is a potentially deadly fracture because your leg is very vascular at that point. You can lose a lot of blood into that body cavity. So this, what will happen is the bone will break, it will slide on over itself, and it will cause a lot of pain and potentially a lot of bleeding. So this splint, all this is meant to do is it's meant to actually pull traction on the leg. It'll pull traction down, cause the bone ends to come back together, line up. It reduces pain significantly. It can actually slow down that bleeding. So this one is by North American Rescue. It's not branded the Kendrick traction device anymore. This is like the tactical traction device. However, this is, for the old school people, this is the Kendrick traction device, or the same kind of idea here. So I keep that on the outside of the pack mainly because it is too big to really go anywhere on the inside. I personally feel like this is a very important piece of equipment. Having done ski patrol for many years, you know, this is something that can really help people in those situations. But I also know a lot of paramedics that don't really care for these. So I personally love them and wouldn't go anywhere without one. So on this side of the pack, I have a 511 IFAC. Now there's nothing special about this bag. It just has 2 netted compartments, and honestly, I had it laying around, so I figured I'd use it for it. In here, I've got all my minor stuff. So first and foremost, I have some PPE. These are just some bear claw gloves. They're really heavy duty gloves from North American Rescue. I've got an eye shield for the potential eye injury, nose clamp for your persistent nosebleeds, just really easy to throw on the nose and they can leave it. It doesn't have to be like held the entire time. I have some duct tape in there because that can come in useful in a variety of different situations. I have some eye wash, which is a saline bullet, and then like minor band-aids and stuff like that on this side. In the top of this case, I have all my like minor pharmaceutical things. So I've got some hand wash, some chapstick here, which is basically just for some sun protection. It gets really dry out here in Colorado. And then I'm also carrying a bunch of over-the-counter stuff. So honestly, I just picked up 2 of these, and these are like first aid accessory kits from REI, and this one's just a bunch of over-the-counter medication. So in here I've got an antidiarrheal, electrolyte tabs, antihistamine, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, and an antacid. So just really minor things you might need, but definitely a lifesaver figuratively. The rest of this in here, I've got some antibiotic ointment, anti-itch cream, and I'm carrying a Sharpie. So this is just kind of my minor catch-all kit with a bunch of the stuff that you really want, but isn't necessarily going to save a life out there. It'll just make you a lot more comfortable if you can get somebody with some antidiarrheals or what else have you. Oh, and then in here I do have some Tums and some Zyrtec. Right below that kit, I actually have a Blue Force Gear micro trauma kit now. And the reason I put this in here is this is a blowout kit that I can access while this pack's still on my back. So if I need something right now, all I have to do is pull this tab here and the pack comes out, slides right out. In here, it's got the main necessities. So I've got an NPA, I've got a trauma dressing, gloves, a needle decompression, I've got combat gauze, some Gorilla Tape, and then the hyphen chest seal. So it's your main use life-saving items, and I can access that with one hand, really easy to grab. So I just put that on the side so it can be easily accessed. Now on the front of the pack, I have these two pouches, and I have these set up identically as other blowout kits. So I don't like to have my life-saving immediate items deep inside the pack, because if I need to stop hemorrhage really quick or stop a sucking chest wound, I want to be able to access all of that really fast. So both of these are the exact same. In here, I've got some Celox gauze, so this is just Quick Clot gauze, just a different brand there. And I'm carrying two cat tourniquets. This one's one of my Gen 6s, which I will be phasing out, and then this is a Gen 7 here. I've got some chest seals, and I have a major trauma dressing for your major reps. So once again, this is just fast access, the main life threats that I can control right now. On the bottom of the kit, I have another Winkler Knives axe, and this is actually the Rescue Axe, which is very similar to the Medic Axe that I showed you guys the other week. This one is a little bit bigger with a little bit of different functionality. So on this guy here, comes right out of the sheath, and right up front we've got the axe head. We have a hammer tool and a spike down here for breaking windows or for making punctures. And then down here we have the can opener. So, this is good for a variety of different things. In a wilderness scenario, you can use a hatchet to build a shelter, build a litter, any number of things there. And then this can opener can be used for extrication. They intended it for like an aircraft, but the front windshield of a car, you can use this to pry through that and actually cut through it pretty easily. So one of those things that, do you absolutely need it? Probably not, but I have it, and I think it's a great addition to this kit. Winkler Knives makes amazing products, and this has already come in handy a couple times. So one thing I just put on the bottom of the pack right here, just strap it on with the bottom straps. In the lower pocket of this pack, I carry a quick litter. So this is not a super substantial litter. This is from North American Rescue, and it's just an easy way you can roll somebody onto this and pretty quickly carry them out of an environment. You can put them on that and drag them out as a single person, but it is going to get torn up pretty quick. I basically chose this one because it's super lightweight and super small, fits down here, and then I still have some room to put some sustainment items in there with this litter. All right, coming to the top of the pack, this top pocket right now is completely empty, but this is where I would keep the medications that we carry with us. We are an advanced life support unit, so we carry all of our ALS medications. The list is pretty substantial for these, and I actually have them written down. So in here we are carrying etomidate, ketamine, Ativan, midazolam, rocuronium, succinylcholine, Epi 1 to 1000, and occasionally Epi 1 to 10,000, although that takes up a lot of space for not that much benefit. Benadryl, Solumedrol, aspirin, mag sulfate, nitro, Zofran, D10, glucagon, calcium chloride, atropine, amiodarone, adenosine, sodium bicarb, fentanyl, morphine, albuterol, Atrovent, cardizem, cyanokits, Narcan, and dopamine. So it is a pretty comprehensive list. There are a couple things that I really want to get for that. I definitely want to get TXA for the middle of nowhere, but right now we don't have that as a service. We're a little bit behind in that regard. Other than that, that's basically everything you need. And we do have the ability to pare that down depending on our capabilities. One of the really nice things we have is we do have the ability to perform rapid sequence intubation and surgical airways. So some of those meds like ketamine and your rocuronium, which we're going to be using for RSI, are super useful in some of those environments to control the airway in an austere environment. So that's what goes up here. And then there is a little bit more room. I usually have a hat and some extrication gloves up here as well. All right, so coming into the pack itself. So in here, you just take the top flap off. I have a pair of trauma shears right on the front of the pack. Now this pack in particular has 2 places for tourniquets to be stored on the outside. I've opted not to do that just because the couple deployments I've been on with the team have involved a lot of rain and, as you can guess, some not great conditions. And I don't really want my tourniquets exposed to the elements. I like to keep them contained. These zippers have water resistance on them, so this keeps it a little bit more safe and will keep it from degrading with any period of time. So the pack itself, as we come into this, I have this pack set up to pretty much follow the March algorithm, which is an assessment technique used in the tactical realm, but it's really gaining a lot of traction in other aspects of medicine. So the first thing we're dealing with is massive hemorrhage, which is on the outside of the pack there. That's not even getting into the pack itself. But then coming into the rest of it, I have all of my airway adjuncts in this pod here. So we can open this up, or I can actually tear this out of the pack and pass it to somebody. I just have a bunch of nasopharyngeal airways of a multitude of sizes. And then honestly, I think I'm going to take this out because they're not super useful if you have NPAs. I do have a set of OPAs, but they take up quite a lot of space, and as you can tell, this thing is pretty much full to the brim. Below that, I am carrying a small airway roll. So in here, I've got a laryngoscope, a scalpel, and then I just have 2 sized blades. I do need to get one more in here. I need to get a small Miller blade, but the most common blade that I use is the Mac 4, and this can actually be used up to very small people and up to the very large people. So that's generally what I carry. We have the scalpel here for our surgical cricothyrotomies. We're not carrying a specific kit for that, because I'm actually using endotracheal tubes to perform that. And then just a standard metal handle here. I didn't really like what North American Rescue was selling. They were kind of plastic, felt a little bit cheap, so I went ahead and got the metal version here. And then in here will be some spare batteries for the laryngoscope, just in case it goes dead while we're out on deployment. So coming right to the back of this, we do have some McGill forceps here, and this is for removing objects from somebody that's choking. It can also be used as just hemostats. They're just not quite as effective because they don't lock. And then last but not least, we have some neosynephrine. This is good for controlling your massive nosebleeds, but then we can also use this for nasal intubations. That's kind of a touchy subject. Denver Health in Colorado does a ton of them. We don't really do any, but we have it just in case. And then, like I said, it's really great for those nosebleeds. To be used in conjunction with that pocket, right next to it, we have all of our endotracheal tubes. So I carry one of almost every size. We have a commercial tube secure here, and then a bougie and a stylet. All of those are just different things to use for controlling a patient's airway. Like I said, this is an advanced kit, so we do carry these. The bougie is great because it can be used for those difficult intubations, but then you can also use it to help with your surgical cric, and it is literally a lifesaver there. In case we can't get the endotracheal tube, it's always good to have a backup airway, and if you're doing endotracheal tubes, you need to have something as a backup. It's not even an option. So I tried to put eye gels in here, but they are too big. The packaging just makes the side bulge. That's what we use as a department, and I still have to actually get clearance of this kit, so I'm hoping they'll let me use them, but I just have some King tubes in here, and these are non-visualized supraglottic airways. They go down into the esophagus and then actually seal off the esophagus while providing airflow to the trachea and the lungs. Pretty good devices there. Little did I know, actually, that these are supposed to be inserted with laryngoscope. That's how they were designed. So that's kind of nice to have that in conjunction. I do have the laryngoscope here to insert. I've cut the syringe off the other two to save space, and then just have one syringe on all of them on the most common size here. Next pocket down, this is all my breathing stuff. So we go airway, breathing, and then circulation after that. So this is all the stuff I have for breathing. This is the Micro BVM. I've had these forever. It's a bag valve mask, helps you breathe for your patients without getting close to them, can deliver very high concentrations of oxygen. Now, I do not carry an oxygen tank on here because honestly, in the wilderness setting, those tanks are gonna run out so quickly. So we do have a separate pack for the O2 tank, but this can be used with or without oxygen. Without oxygen, it just delivers that 21% that we have in the ambient air. But really great device, and this does have the hookup to go to an oxygen tank. Behind there, I have a bunch of chest seals. So we've got chest seals in a couple different places. We've got them on the side here, we've got them in the blowout kits, but then I have even more in this kit. And these are great because they can be used for a multitude of different things, mainly sucking chest wounds, but they can be used for your occlusive dressings on the neck if they've got a massive neck injury or potentially burns in some situations. So really great to have, and these are all vented. And then I am carrying 2 ARS needles down here. So once again, we have a couple more, but these are for your needle decompressions. They can also be used for your needle cricothyrotomies if your surgical fails, or if it's a kid under the age of 12. We'll go to this. Next up, we have circulation. So for me, circulation is basically IV stuff. Now, we're not giving saline to a bunch of trauma patients, but dehydration is a very real possibility in these wilderness scenarios. So I carry 2 500 milliliter bags of saline in here, and then 2 administration sets, some saline flushes for med administration, and then I have start kits from North American Rescue with 18 gauge needles in them. This is just for that rehydration, but like I said, for the massive trauma, massive hemorrhage, this isn't really going to do a whole lot of good for them. What's really nice about this pocket is you can actually hang this up. I can pull this pocket out, hang it up. The bags hang in here to protect them. Kind of a nice feature of this pack. So the next pocket in here, getting a little bit harder to see for you. This pocket here is basically your bandaging, random supplies for splinting and all of that. So I'm carrying a multitude of triangular bandages. These are used for slings, swaths, can be used for bandages, bandanas. They're very versatile. So I carry a bunch of these. I am also carrying one, and this is also a triangular bandage, but this is a triangular bandage that doubles as a burn bandage by North American Rescue. So super handy to have and just kind of multifaceted there. Then I'm carrying some Coban and 2 pieces of wrap here. You can wrap ankles, help somebody hike out. These are good for securing splints, so on and so forth. So really can't stress these supplies enough. And then I have a big roll of medical tape, and I don't have to explain the uses of this. Super, super useful to have. Last but not least, because I had it and I figured why not, I threw an IT clamp in there. And this is, I have another video about this earlier. This is just a big spiky clamp that can go on a scalp wound or a neck wound or a junctional wound, and it's basically like an instant suture. It closes that up and can stop bleeding pretty fast. So just one more thing to have in this kit. To go along with those supplies, in this side, I am carrying a SAM splint. So this is a pliable splint, can be used in a variety of different ways. Can be used as a C-collar, can be used to do forearms, legs, knees, elbows, you name it. So very versatile. I am just carrying one though. You can improvise other splints if you need them in the wilderness pretty easily. The last main pouch in here, this is my vitals pocket. So this is my assessment tools. I've got a blood pressure cuff, and they were asking a couple weeks ago what this was. This is the Welsh Allen blood pressure cuff. It's got the dial on the pumper, on the hand pump, which I really like. It's kind of a middle of the road blood pressure cuff. I am just carrying one size for the average adult because they do take up space. I don't have a lot more space in this pack. Of course, to go along with the blood pressure cuff, I am carrying my Littman Master Cardiology stethoscope, one of my favorite stethoscopes I've ever used. I got this right after I graduated paramedic school, and I actually bought my wife one when she entered medical school. So I've really liked this. And then I have a pulse oximeter here. This is an Innovo pulse oximeter. I actually got it off of Amazon. I like it because it displays a pleth waveform, which tells you good connectivity, shows you the pulse and the O2 saturation. This device's utility in the wilderness setting is relatively limited, mainly because cold, wet environments, you're going to get false readings. But it is just one more thing to have, especially at the marathons. It's super great to just throw this on somebody's finger and go from there and let it give you constant readings. And then last but not least in there, I have a pen light, and this is for assessing pupils, looking in ears, nose, mouth, all of that stuff. So once again, a nice tool to have. Just a couple other things in this pack. In this top pocket here, it's going to be kind of difficult for me to get out. I am carrying a warming blanket from North American Rescue, and this goes in the pocket that also has a small foam pad to keep your trauma patients off the ground to keep them warm. I've said it almost every single video I've done, hypothermia kills and trauma. But this is a special blanket by North American Rescue, and this thing here actually will heat up. It cocoons the patients, keeps them very warm, and then you can even put a reflective blanket on top of this to give it a little bit of added warmth to it. So Warmth is super, super important in the wilderness environment. That's why I keep that in there. And then like I just said, this actually has a foam pad that goes in the back of here, it folds out, and you can put it under your patient, keep them off the ground, keep that conduction from occurring and them losing body heat. The last pocket I have in here, this is their quote trash pocket, but you know, I wanted to fill it with a useful supply. And I just have a abdominal trauma pad in there. This is just a big gauze pad that could go over something. You know, if somebody eviscerates themselves, something like that, you can throw it over their abdomen, wrap it, and it just covers things up, keeps grime and stuff from getting into that wound. So I keep that right in the front there. Now, this pack will be changing and evolving over time. You know, once it sees a couple deployments, I'm sure I will find things that I would like to carry that I am not right now. But overall, I think this is pretty comprehensive. It is not very heavy, and I can carry it for long distances. We are looking at getting a couple more of these and hopefully outfitting them very similar to this one. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will see you next week.